It is the Beaver Banter Podcast, back for episode number 2 of the 24-25 season. I'm CJ Baumgartner. That's Ian Rivers. Ian, here we go. It's game week. It's crazy to say that.
Yeah, we're 2 days away from the time of recording, 2 days and 1 hour away from Bemidji State football finally kicking off the season against Michigan Tech. I'm sure by the time this comes out, it'll be closer to 18 hours away or something like that, 16 maybe. But yeah, I'm doing my math way off. That's less than a day, not 2 days. Anyways,
communications majors, people, communications majors. Don't get us on our math stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna be last week. We kind of did a preview of the fall sports seasons, maybe what we expect to kind of happen overall. This week we'll be kind of really just touching on two major things. Today is the football game coming up in a couple of days against Michigan Tech, and the Midco sports news that just dropped before we started recording today. So those will be kind of our two talking points for today's episode.
Yeah, and I think we should start with football, like you talked about. Their game coming up Thursday night, 7:00 kickoff from the Chet. I mean, it's going to be fun. And there's a lot of intrigue with this Bemidji State football team. The last few years, there was expectations. It was fun. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take anything away from last year's opening kickoffs, but I've just been intrigued on what this team is going to look like on the offensive side of the football. And we talked a lot about this last week. Go watch last week's episode. Like Ian said, it has this kind of previewing going, kind of generally speaking stuff. But some news that of course got announced, or we stumbled upon it after recording. Ian, you're like Nostradamus here. You said that Sam McGath, like just the guy that's likely to be that starting quarterback this year. And turns out that's true. According to the Bemidji Pioneer, he's been named the starting quarterback. And I mean, he's the senior in the room. He's had playing experience. He's been on the field. I have no reason to think that this is the guy. You just have to make that call in this situation. You got to go with what you know, especially with the team with as high of expectations as Bemidji State has. If you feel like, he just knows how to run the offense, he knows how to make things happen, you just got to throw him in there to start and see where things happen.
And I think that Sam might have a little bit of an unfair psychological disadvantage in terms of fan base's perception of him, because for a couple of years now, the only times we really have seen him are at the end of games when we're not throwing the ball too much anyways, because normally if he's in, we're up by 30, 35 points or whatever at the end of the game, or it's a goal line package or a fourth down package where we need short yardage and he is most likely going to tuck the ball and run because he is very good at that. I still think he's a very valid passer of the football. We just have this, Sam's in, we're going to run the ball. Right. So maybe I think we have a little bit of an unfair thought, at least I do in my mind, of it's like, well, he's definitely not Brandon Alt. Like, yeah, he might not be, but he's still probably pretty good at throwing the ball. We haven't seen him air it out a ton over the course of his career, but I definitely think it's something that's within his repertoire. And I think he's going to be totally capable of leading this team. So, yeah, like you said, the senior in the room, give these young guys another chance to learn the offense for a year behind a veteran. And we'll see how the season goes. I don't know that Sam will end up getting benched for poor play within the first couple of weeks, especially with the game here against Michigan Tech. I think that's going to prop him up pretty nicely and have a nice debut.
To build some momentum is what you're saying.
Right, exactly. So I think we would have to see some pretty bad spell over the first month or so here to start having that discussion. I think Sam is probably going to be the guy to go this season. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, and the other thing we talked about last week, and I'll just kind of bring it up again, is how is this offense going to run? Because with Jordan Hine, who was, again, as we talked about, the second best quarterback Bemidji State had, and upon his graduation from school, he was the Bemidji State kind of best quarterback of all time. And then Brandon Alt steps in and, of course, takes that mantle from him. But, they were an offense that could throw the ball, but it was very, hard play action. It was, you had some stuff, not hard play action, I should say, but it was very the ground game was a very big impact. And the fact that Hine was such a good runner and he could do things with the ball in his hands that you leaned on that a lot, and he leaned on that a lot, and they were very successful doing that. Now you had Brandon Alt come in, who's just, he's just a league in his own in passing, and you just whip it around the field. There's no need to have him run out in space when he can throw the ball the way he does. And now you're going to see probably a shift, not a one-to-one apples to apples comparison, but it'll just be interesting to see how much do they incorporate those quarterback run packages, those packages that, like you talked about, Ian, Bemidji State used with McGath on the field a lot. Are they going to lean into those right away and try and expand as the season goes on? Or is it like, no, this guy's a senior. He knows the whole playbook. We have stuff set up for him, and we have plays that we're going to go, and he's now going to have full command of the offense? Or do they lean a little bit more on get the ball in his hands, let him run around the field a little bit, and necessarily not as much on that big downfield passing, and maybe more kind of West Coast, a lot of short intermediate stuff, and just kind of keep the ball moving forward? It'll be really fascinating. I'm fascinated to watch this game because I could see either option happening. I could see them doing whatever. Like, it's all on the table just because we haven't seen it. And this is going to be our first little taste as to what things are going to be like for the Bemidji State football team on the offensive side. And the reason we're talking a lot about the offense is because we both expect the defense to be pretty good, and we expect the defense to do its job. I mean, there's like, that's pretty cut and dry, especially against a team like Michigan Tech, which we'll get to in a second. But I think that's the fascinating part, is this is the first time since 2018, I mean, if you even want to go back to before Hein, where this is the first time in almost a decade where we're going, I'm intrigued because I don't know what's going on at the quarterback position. Like, this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's good for the rushing offense to see a quarterback who is more willing to run. I think that will help. You look at the rushing offense last season in the NSIC, it was 9th ranked rushing offense at 137 yards per game. And honestly, that number is pretty good considering the fact that in college football, sacks come out of your rushing yardage total.
Right.
A testament to the offensive line. They're very good at pass protecting. Brandon Alt didn't take a lot of sacks, so that's probably factored in there a little bit. But I'm interested to see where this team ends up with the rushing offense this year with a little bit more of a mobile quarterback. You see it in the NFL. Good running quarterbacks have good running offenses, and it makes it easier, for the quarterback to get rushing yards, and it helps the running backs because, read option isn't necessarily the most foolproof thing, but the gap might be a little bit more open every once and then when you have to, the quarterback is a threat here. He could keep the ball. We have to stay a little bit more honest. So it does help your rushing offense overall to have a quarterback that's a little bit more willing to stretch the field with his legs as well as his arms. So I think that will be very interesting, seeing how that helps the rushing offense. I assume that it will. Jaden Washington, I believe, is the name of the now sophomore running back, who I really liked last year as a freshman. They've got a good, solid stable of running. I'm really interested to see not only how the passing offense looks, but how the rushing offense looks. I hope that can be improved from the last couple of seasons. And then, the defense. I mean, what is there to say? Maybe the passing defense can be a little bit better this season. Last season, they were actually, I'm looking at this now, 4th overall in pass defense. There was some big plays that I felt like got let up, but overall last season, the pass defense, I think, course corrected towards the end of the season. If you remember correctly, we brought it up a few times early in the season. Like,
yeah, we did.
Man, if anything's going to kick us this year, it's going to be the pass defense. And then it kind of flipped, and the run defense stayed good all year, but the defense as a whole just kind of really battened down the hatches towards the end of the season. They played really, really well in the late stretches of the year. And I think as the weather gets colder, that's what you want to lean on, man. I mean,
well, and that helps out your pass defense too when it gets colder.
Exactly. And being able to run the football better is going to be huge if we continue to play games late into the season, as we haven't had a super dominant rushing attack. So I'm really curious to see if Bemidji State can establish more of a running game, and that can help their balance as a team overall this season.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And like you talked about, they've hosted NCAA tournament games at the Chet in November, close to Thanksgiving. Like it post Thanksgiving gets cold on Lake Bemidji. So like to have some of that stuff and to build up that running game to where you can lean on it a little bit more. And again, to have that pass defense help out is huge for them. One last thing on the offense, and then we'll kind of move on to the Michigan Tech preview is I also think that there's an opportunity to have a nice passing day because all Michigan Tech has on tape is them running and the packages with McGath and they're going to sell out for the run, and it'll offer up some good options in the passing game. It'll offer up some nice matchups that you can take advantage of, at least from an outside looking in perspective. I mean, I think if you're a team, you have little tape to work with. You have to assume some certain things and coverages and whatever, and how you're planning to go about attacking a quarterback. And I think they're going to go in thinking that guys run heavy. They're not going to quite know what to do. They're going to have to guess a little bit on how they want to cover Bemidji State in pass coverage. And I think that could open up something for the offense to going from the passing game. But you're right, that ground game doesn't have an opportunity to have a really nice game as well. Moving into Michigan Tech, this game. And I mean, look, I know it's not hockey, but it just feel good after the last time these two schools played each other to get a win versus Michigan Tech. Aren't we all thinking it just a little bit?
Oh yeah. I will be obnoxious on Twitter to the few Husky fans that are frequent interactors with this podcast and its hosts. Yeah, exactly. I don't care that it's football. I'm still going to be hanging this banner.
I'm leaving with something.
Right. Yeah. Anything after it kind of reminds me of, if you're a soccer fan at all, Brazil back in 2014 got absolutely destroyed 7-1 by Germany in Brazil in the World Cup semifinal. One of the most embarrassing losses in international soccer history, probably, to be at home and to lose in a World Cup semifinal 7-1. And then 2 years later, the Olympics was also, I believe, in Rio. I could be wrong about where that was.
That was right.
But Brazil won the gold medal in a, let's be honest, a not serious soccer tournament on the men's side. The Olympics is not considered and they were very happy that they beat Germany. And I'm like, all right, guys, whatever it takes to make you feel better about that. So that would kind of be a decent comparison as to this win would avenge our CCHA tournament loss.
Every attack line you have, they're gonna just post that picture of them holding the cup on our ice, and it's gonna be.
And I will report it. I will report it, and hope that Elon finds it offensive to be posting that.
I mean, any kind of Michigan Tech content really could count as that, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think Michigan Tech is a good game to start off with. No offense to them, but I don't think that they're any, Mankato or Augustana, or even a Duluth. So I think it'll be good to kind of get 5-5 last season, for all intents and purposes, a mid team in to see what they have. Now, honestly, they had some decent games. Some of these games out of conference, they play in the GLIAC. I'm not really sure how good Hillsdale is. We kind of talked about Wisconsin-Platteville. That feels like a D3 college because we're pretty sure there's no D2 colleges in the state of Wisconsin. So how much do we hang a 4-point win over a potential D3 school? That's not necessarily that good. And then beating Upper Iowa by 3. I mean, we've played Upper Iowa before, and we've beat them by more than 3.
In fact, there was a couple. I can't remember if it was UMary or Upper Iowa, but it was one particular game where you didn't play as well against them, and it was like a 2-score victory, and we're still like, oh man, that's pretty tight. And they escaped with a 3-point victory. So, yeah.
But then they have some games like this 14-point loss to Ferris State, who ended up finishing number 9 in the country last season.
And won
Ferris State's good. Back-to-back national championships, I think it was, they hung within 14 at Ferris State. So they had some games on their schedule that were respectable. So I don't think they're necessarily any pushover team like the Beavers in Minot maybe, or UMary, as you just talked about. But I think it'll be a good barometer of where this team is at and how well that they can play, especially in Bemidji. You get to sleep in your own bed the night before. I looked at the forecast a couple minutes ago. I think it says 77 with a chance of thunderstorms. So I don't know when those thunderstorms are supposed to happen in Bemidji or if they will end up happening. But it looks like it'll be at least a decent day for football, depending on when those storms are going to be rolling through. So I expect a win from this game. It's really hard to judge how good this team's going to be. They don't play in our conference. That's kind of rare. Outside of the playoffs, this is like one of the first non-conference games that I can remember Bemidji State playing in football. So we don't have a good chance to really gauge how good they are year to year. I don't know. I think you said you might have the statistics still up. They are returning 8 players on offense and 9 on defense or something like that.
Yeah, so according to Upper Michigan's source, it says 9 defensive starters and 8 offensive starters from a year ago are coming back. Last year, they finished 6th in the GLIAC, and this year they are pulled to finish 5th. So they're roughly expected to be about the 500 team they were a season ago. And that's, again, are they pushovers? Is it like a walk-in win? No, it's not. But at the end of the day, this is an opponent that on paper, Bemidji State has a better roster than, and you're at home and you have everything in your advantage. It's week 1. So I think there's just a lot in Bemidji State's favor that they should be the ones that are expected to win this game. And this should be one where Bemidji State comes away with the victory with all of the factors we're considering. But then again, it is a different thing because, you know, we talked about Minot State and pushovers. They beat Minot State 37-3 last year. That sounds like a score Bemidji State would have against a Minot State team. And it's just the fact of that you don't play this team very often. So, you'll get film from other schools and you'll get things, but it's not a week 6 non-conference matchup. It's a week 1 non-conference matchup. You're going in blind on some things, and it's on coaching at that point, not just in preparation, but also in the, when do you realize something's not working, or like, hey, we thought they'd come with this, they actually went with that. How quick are you willing to adjust on the fly? And not only just willing to adjust, but making the right adjustments. Obviously, both team staff are great at what they do. So like, that's not the concern, but it'll just be the fascinating part of how they go about that overall in this game against Michigan Tech. Overall, I mean, I'm trying to find some more stuff on this football team and just some things that they do well in the stat department. But overall, I think this is just a game Bemidji State. This is just a game on a gut level. Bemidji State should win this game. Yeah,
that's kind of what I have as a reaction as well. If you're looking at the history between the two teams, Bemidji State has 10 wins and 20 losses all time against Michigan Tech. But I don't know how much I'm going to hang my hat on that, because the last matchup, CJ, as we discussed before this, was 1993. So it's been quite a few years, close to 30, over 30, actually, 31 since these teams met in competitive action at the very least. So you can't really go based off the history too much for this hockey rivalry played on turf. But I'm excited to see the guys get back out there at the very least. And yeah, I think sometimes, a couple seasons ago, you can look at it two ways, right? Because sometimes I almost feel like early in the season is the best time to get an upset. You want to play that team week 1 because crazy stuff can happen week 1. You see it in the NFL all the time. Week 1, there's some weird matchups, and it's like, how did this team end up beating this team when this – you look at the end of the season, it's crazy. And I think that that's true, but I do also like having a game to kind of get tuned up, get into it. And then I believe we have a matchup with Mankato coming up in a couple weeks. Is it Mankato or is it Augustana week 2 for the Beavers?
I want to say it's Mankato.
I believe it is.
Yeah, but, I want to say it's Mankato.
It's Minnesota State, yes. On the road.
Of course. Yeah, that's right, because they were here for homecoming last year. Looking at some stats here from the Michigan Tech starting quarterback, Alex Fries, Saginaw, Michigan native, senior this year. And last year was really his first year as a starting quarterback. He threw for 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns. And looking at he had 10 interceptions. So he had a 14-10 touchdown to interception ratio, which is something that, Bemidji State theoretically, it's not a 1-to-1 almost, but could theoretically be something for that pass defense if they have a good game. You might be able to get a turnover or two that way for the Beavers.
Yeah, and this team can take the ball away. I think we've seen that before. They're returning a decent amount of their defensive linemen from last year. Marcus Hansen is back. Marco Cavallero is back. They've got a good stable of guys there in on the defensive line. That was one of the best parts of the defense last season. They get sacks, they get run stops. They are ferocious, and that gangrene defense is going to come ready. And I just think this is a game where you might start off a little bit slow. The offense may be a little bit choked up at the beginning of the game, but I think after halftime, you'll start to see them pull away. I expect, 10 to 14 point victory, kind of bare minimum type stuff here.
Yeah. And when you look at the total numbers from the 2023 team, again, it's a little, you got to take it with a little grain of salt here, but Michigan Tech, a team that can score a little bit, they'd average, there's a bug that just ran right in front of where I am recording. Had to swat that thing. Anyway, thought there was something else like running. I was like, what the heck was that? Watch on YouTube to see my weird reaction to that. Anyway, if you look at the 2023 cumulative stats for Michigan Tech football, they averaged 27.8 points a game. And they had about 278 total yards per game. On the flip side, they allowed 24 points a game, while 242 total yards. In terms of rushing, as a team, they got about 1,393 yards a season ago. Passing, they would average about 208 yards per game. So again, this is a team that likes to have some offense, and I think that plays well for Bemidji State's defense, in the fact that, again, it's something that this team is really good at for Bemidji State in their defense. And I just think overall, again, we expect them to win this game. I think it's going to be a question mark on offense early, like you talked about. It's going to take some adjustments. They're going to need to get some game snaps for them to kind of fully come into form, just because they haven't had a lot of those as a full unit with McGath as the starting quarterback. But that being said, by the time the second half rolls around, they should be in control of this football game, I think.
Yeah, I would expect that. And you're looking at a Bemidji State team who was the top scoring defense in the NSIC last season. So I think that this will be a good game to test the defense. I would like to see a clean game. A couple seasons ago when we started this podcast, the first game was against Mankato. They would have won that game if they just not turned the ball over like 3 times in the first half and given up. I think one of them was a pick 6 maybe, or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. It's like, man, we played so well in the second half. If we could have just not completely imploded in the first half, we would have probably been there and been able to beat and upset Minnesota State. But yeah, I think it's
Michigan Tech did fumble 10 times the season ago. They lost 6 of them. And whether you win or lose a fumble can sometimes be fluky, because it just kind of depends on where the ball bounces. But 10 fumbles, that's, less than 1 a game. But
it's 1 a game when they played 10 games.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did only play 10 games. Yeah, I keep forgetting that. So yeah, they fumble about once a game. So that's just a fumble. And we talked about, again, 10 interceptions a season ago from Fries, the starting quarterback for Tech. There's opportunities to get some turnovers for this Bemidji State defense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something to look for. Maybe that we haven't touched on with Sam McGath a little bit is, how much is he going to turn the ball? If anything at all, that's the one knock we had on Brandon Alt, is he's a little bit
pass a lot, you have the opportunity.
He just doesn't care. He's going to throw the ball, and a lot of times he had the arm talent to just get it in there, and it was a great play. But he did end up with last season, actually, he took care of the ball a decent amount last year. Only 9 interceptions for Brandon Alt. But you look at the season before, I will quickly go check that for us. But I guarantee you, I think it was like 15 the season before. So let's see. I'm curious to see then how the offense will look. That's what you tell. I'm not saying that McGath is a game manager, but that's
in your first start, it's going to be a little bit like
take care of the ball. Yeah, take care of the ball. And let's see what happens. That's going to be a great thing. It's like the easiest way to sound smart. If you have like novice level football knowledge friends, is we got to win the turnover battle. It's the easiest way to say, like, how are you going to win this game? If anybody asks you that and you don't really know football, but you want to sound like you know football, just say that. We got to win the turnover battle. That's the easiest way to win.
And then say win in between the trenches.
Win in the trenches. Yeah, do the little things. Establish the run. Don't turn the ball over.
Stop
stuff
the run.
That we probably have said every single week on this podcast. We're exposing ourselves.
We got to run the ball and stop the run. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? Anyway,
don't let the other team score points. It's pretty simple. But
I simply would just have called the play that would have worked on fourth down. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Anyway, I think we've pretty much kind of set our piece on this Bemidji State football game. I think there's one extra thing. We've talked about all of this, but we know Bemidji State's a team that they play with a calculated aggression. I think it would be a fun way, is the fun way that I'm describing with. They're a team, they pick their moments, but they are not afraid. They don't go to fourth down just to go for it on fourth down, but they will go for it. They're a team that will, make a gutsy. They will go for two at the end of a game for the win instead of going for a PAT to tie. That happened a long time ago. It was about 6 years ago now, which feels like a long time ago in 2018 in that homecoming game. But like, this is a team that will be aggressive. So as much as we talk about, maybe they'll lean on the run game and they'll play it safe early and they'll build some momentum. I could also see them coming out and being like, here we go, new quarterback. We're going to show everybody we mean business. Like, this is a statement game, a good opportunity to do that against. And who knows? I think who knows is the biggest thing with this football game, because we just have nothing on tape for the season. We'll know a little bit more about this football team a couple days from now, a couple nights from now, once that football game is played. I'm so ready. I have to work Thursday night. Otherwise, I would have found a way to sneak up to Bemidji State to go watch that football game. But I'm hoping to get off work in time to watch the second half of the football game and all that good stuff. But overall, here we go. Score predictions. Ian, Bemidji State wins this game. I'm going to say 31-17.
That is a really good score. Just for the fact that I don't want to be the same, I think it is 35-20. That's what I think. I think they're going to do a pretty good job in week one and get a good win.
Yeah. All right. One last thing that we need to talk about, and then we'll wrap up the podcast here for the week. Again, volleyball and women's soccer are not quite ready to play yet. They've women's soccer has played some exhibitions, but they don't keep scores or stats for those. So like, that's not, I mean, they played them, especially, it's not like they went to go play SDSU or UND like they have and played Division I opponent. They've went down and played D3 with some of them with McAllister and St. Scholastica and some of these. So they happened. There's probably some things to take away from them, but it's like a preseason game. I don't know. They happened. It's important for them, but it's not so much important from a fan perspective. Here's the thing with volleyball. Both of them are going to play September 4th and September 5th, respectively. So for next episode, we'll have some stuff to break down with them. Ian, we got to talk a little bit about some news that dropped before we record a podcast, which doesn't typically happen. And you alluded to it earlier. It's the fact that Midco Sports has released, and the CCHA have released their plan for the hockey season coming up from Midco Sports Plus. This is according to bsubeavers.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see some of the stuff pulled up here right now. Midco Sports Plus is ready to bring Central Collegiate Hockey Association fans the content they've been anticipating. The CCHA's regular season and Mason Cup quarterfinals, semifinals, and championship will exclusively be streamed on Midco Sports Plus. Then there's a quote from Commissioner Don Lucia as whatever. Midco Sports Plus includes 3 content packages. Midco Sports Plus 1, which is available now, and we can access all 3 packages on September 3rd. So that'll be Tuesday. CCHA TV's 180 live events can be found on Midco Sports Plus 2 for $24.99 a month or $129.99 per year. Not all Midco Sports original productions are available to watch on Midco Sports or stream Midco Sports Plus. Available on mobile, a tablet, TV apps. You can get Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku app, web-based provider. All this is on, again, bsubeavers.com if you want to go read it for yourself. But here are the packages, Ian. $9.99 a month for Midco Sports Plus One, and you get Midco Sports Original Productions. You get the Summit League Network, St. Thomas Football, Missouri Valley Football League, SDSU Wrestling, Denver Gymnastics, and Lacrosse. For Midco Sports Plus Two, which is $24.99 a month, Midco Sports, you get all of that, plus Midco Sports Original Productions and the Central Collegiate Hockey Association. Excuse me, Midco Sports Plus 2 is just those two things. Midco Sports Plus All In is all of those things. So if you just want to watch for the college hockey, you pick Plus 2. If you're, like one listener on the podcast who is an NDSU guy, I guess you would want to get the big package.
Well, and for St. Thomas fans as well, potentially,
right,
who play their football games. I believe most of their,
which is not the Missouri Valley. So it's just kind of a way Missouri Valley includes most of the teams in their area, and St. Thomas football just kind of.
But it's still St. Thomas football,
right?
So the thing I'm very interested with is it says in the Midco Sports Plus All In at the bottom there, it says Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference. What is that all about? Like, I was not told. Maybe that's for playoffs, and we got to pony up an extra $5 just to what, like they did last season with the broadcasting rights in other conferences. Right. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that looks like, but that's interesting. Yeah, the main one for Beaver hockey fans is going to be Midco Sports Plus 2, which is $24.99 a month, which is a little disappointing. Last year we talked about when it was announced that it was being made that it was $9.99 a month. I didn't fully expect it to stay that, especially with adding that hockey content into the package. But it is $5 cheaper than last year with Flow. But as Lucas, I believe, put out on Twitter
for the year,
it's $5 cheaper per month. It's $20 cheaper for the yearly package. Sure. Somebody that just bought the yearly package anyways, it's $20 cheaper. Otherwise, it's $5 per month cheaper. But I think Lucas of Beaver Territory tweeted out in his acknowledgement of this that it is much less content for an avid hockey fan. So if you're somebody like me who really didn't watch much hockey anyways outside of the CCHA, this is fine. It saves you $5 a month. But if you're somebody like Lucas who does a little bit more of a deep dive into some of the semi-professional leagues and some of the amateur leagues that are all
sports, you had all of Flow Sports, which
all of Flow Sports. It's not just hockey; it's other. I mean, there was football on there if you're in the LEAC conference, I believe. So yeah, this is a little bit of a downgrade in terms of the amount of content that's available. Like I said, I'm a lucky one, I guess, because the only thing I really used Flow consistently for was the hockey in the CCHA anyways. But yeah, so it is a little bit of a downgrade in terms of the amount of content they're giving you, but $5 cheaper a month, $20 cheaper a year. Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, that's when you, yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of a downgrade just on a gut level. You thought maybe it was going to be much cheaper, but you also, I mean, I guess like there's a certain point where like, you're not going to get it for like 99 cents a month or something like that. No. And I mean, really, if I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go at it. Like, I believe technically still local broadcasts can still do their thing. So like, I think Michigan Tech has a local station do their hockey games for the local area. So like, in the future, I don't know if this will ever be a possibility, but in the future, if Lakeland were to do the hockey games again, like that wouldn't be an issue. But for everybody right now, you're going to have to pay a little bit, and it does save you money. It does save you that you get basic. I mean, I only would do it to watch Bemidji State games. So for me, this does save me money. So for people who are saying like, it's not a disappointment. It's just more of like a little bit of just I'm trying to think of the right word.
Like I said, I didn't expect it to be $9.99 when we were talking about it last year, but I was hoping that it would. This kind of feels like they're like, well, they were paying $29.99 last year. Let's just $5, that
Right.
I was hoping it would be like 15 or 20 maybe, but maybe I was trying to be a little bit optimistic.
Right. It's a bit of a bummer, but also at the same time, like, it still is cheaper.
I'd love to watch them for free. That would be awesome. I wish they were televised nationally on YouTube TV, man. Like, that'd be awesome. I already
Right.
pay
Or,
for that. So,
we get the one game of the year where they play St. Cloud State. And that
yes,
gets
and
put
they're
on Fox
broadcast
Plus.
locally.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
stuff like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think this is still going to be overall good for the conference, I think, because here's where pricing wise, and everybody is correct on the pricing stuff. This will be interesting is everybody talked a lot about flow hockey and kind of the bugginess, and sometimes things would crash and sometimes things whatever. The thought is with Midco, it's a smaller company, obviously, compared to Flow Sports, but also they're just focusing on the Summit League and CCHA content. Like the things that they have to focus in on, like if there's a problem with the CCHA stream, they're going to work to fix it. Like not just in the moment, but also like, okay, how'd that happen? How could we, whatever. Whereas when it's Flow Sports, it's like they're worried about so many other things. Like it's just a little bit more like local, I think, is you're paying for the fact that you have local people working. And again, as we talked about before on our summer episode, our breaking emergency podcast that we did in the middle of the summer with Augustana getting full membership into the conference, was Midco has obviously is based in Sioux Falls. So they have a very big interest in having this succeed, which is the other thing. So not off to like this triumphant start. It's again, I think just off the expectations, like we talked about, it feels like a bummer, but this is just a nice starting point. We'll have to see if it's a little bit cheaper and the broadcast quality, like in terms of the streams, like if stuff stops working and things get wonky consistently, then we can say that it's a real.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like I said, for me, it's $5 a month cheaper. So I'm not really complaining. I just know that there are a select few people out there that are like,
right.
dang, I already had everything I wanted all at my fingertips for just $5 more. Like I'd have paid that. But for me, it's fine. For most people that watch Bemidji State hockey, it's probably going to be fine. Yeah, and in terms of like, if you're watching a Ferris State game, I think that we've kind of accepted that sometimes it's not necessarily Flow's fault if the stream stops working. It's just Ferris State doesn't have the hockey facilities in terms of camera or stream setup or whatever to make it happen. But
the setup for, because I mean, if you, for those who don't know, like if you look at who runs the replay and a lot of stuff with production for Bemidji State games, they have people who are hired to run it and it's their job and whatever, but it's a lot of students who are helping out kind of on doing a lot of the grunt work and stuff like that to get experience and feet in the door. And I'd imagine it's a lot of the same way with other campuses. So sometimes it's just that 19-year-old has no clue what he's doing and hit the wrong button.
Right.
And
especially if you're watching on like NSIC network, it's probably a little bit more, probably a little bit better with hockey in Bemidji, at least, where you've got people that know a little bit more about what they're doing.
Well, and there's a little more
football games.
It is a Division I versus like a Division II. Nothing against basketball or football or volleyball, but like it's a Division I event. This is Bemidji State hockey. There's like you just have to treat it with a little more urgency to fix a problem or prevent one from happening.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So I think we've hit everything. I think we've got this podcast in the books. Here we go. It feels like we just wrap things up, but it's football season again. I'm so excited. Even if I can't watch the whole game, to just get home on Thursday and have college football on my TV. Who's got it better than us, Ian?
Nobody.
We snuck in a Chargers reference. There you go.
Let's go. We will not go a week this fall without a Chargers reference. Let's go.
Wait till the games start playing. That's when it's really
good. Baby. Let's go.
If they start out 0-3.
Hey, it wasn't me that made this one though, folks. Let's direct your anger at CJ this week about that. But
I waited until I said, all right, we wrapped it up. So some people probably paused it and moved.
They're like, all right, moving on.
Moving on. Yeah. But then there's some people who still see that there's a little bit of time ticking away. Still like, are they
rambling about for 15 minutes after they said they're wrapping up the podcast?
Is there anything? Are they going to drop a nugget of it? Are they going to drop like a post-credit scene? Like, I don't know what's going on.
Right.
So yeah, good work, Ian. We'll reconvene on next week at this time, and we'll do it again. Roll Beavs, baby. This is